You know, we always look up at the stars and think about, well, science, right? The hard facts, the cold equations that run the whole show. But the universe, it does more than just give us answers. It whispers stories. And tonight, we're going to listen to two of them, fables woven right out of space-time. One is about a great, lonely end, and the other, a defiant, almost impossible beginning.
So listen closely. Children of dust and fire. That's us, right? Born from the ashes of dead stars. And these two stories, these two potential futures, they're practically in our DNA. One is a tale dictated by the cold, hard rules of gravity. The other, it's a story written by a single, incredible choice.
All right, let's start with the first fable. This is a story you can actually see playing out up there in the night sky. It's about the incredible, lonely life of a great star. A story of light and of gravity. And like all truly great things, it ends in this beautiful but absolutely terrifying silence.
Okay, so picture this, a massive star, a powerhouse that for millions, maybe billions of years, was this incredible source of light and life. Kind of like a golden god for all the little worlds spinning around it. But, you know, nothing burns forever. Eventually, its fuel just ran out. And when it did, it couldn't fight against its own immense gravity anymore. It collapsed in on itself, ripping a hole right through the fabric of reality. And what was left? A silent, dark well, an abyss so deep that nothing, not even light, can ever climb back out.
And that edge, that's the event horizon. It's the ultimate point of no return. Now, it's not some physical wall you'd bump into. It's more like a threshold. I love how our source material puts it. It's like a cosmic waterfall. And that's just perfect, isn't it? Because once you drift over that edge, the current of space-time itself has you and it only flows in one direction, down.
So what's it like to cross that line? The fable walks us through it. For someone watching safely from a distance, you just seem to slow down, get redder, and then just fade away. But for you, the real journey is just starting. That gentle tug you first felt, it becomes this unstoppable, relentless pull. It starts stretching your body, your very form, like a piece of silk, until you're literally a stream of atoms flowing into the dark. It's a process called spaghettification, and as it happens, the entire universe you know shrinks down to a single tiny point of light ahead of you. And then, poof, nothing. You're just gone.
So, what's at the bottom of this cosmic well? The singularity, a single point with, get this, infinite density. It's a place where all our rules of physics just stop working. They completely break down. But that's not a flaw in the universe, right? It's just the edge of what we can understand. So the star's story, this fable, it doesn't really end with an answer. It ends with this profound, kind of beautiful mystery that just begs us to wonder.
So that's where the first fable leaves us, staring into the abyss, at the edge of a giant mystery. Now, let's turn to our second story. We're going to leave behind those unbending laws of physics for a moment and step into the much messier world of choice. This is the fable of the Silver Traveler, a being who wasn't just facing a physical void, but a moral one.
Okay, so let's meet our traveler. He's literally made of starlight, a being with a cosmic duty. But his light is fading, he's fraying at the edges. And to make matters worse, he's being hunted by this terrifying entity called the Shadow, basically a god of hunger and emptiness. And what's his mission? He's been tasked with destroying a world eater before it's even born, to stop a future full of just unimaginable pain. Seems like a horrible choice, but a pretty straightforward one, right? Or maybe not.
This is where it gets complicated, because a being called the Witness appears and hits him with this killer question. Think about it. If you destroy something that hasn't even been born yet to prevent some future catastrophe, haven't you just become the very monster you were trying to stop? I mean, is there really a difference between destruction for a good reason and destruction for an evil one?
And that question, it's the absolute turning point of the whole story. The traveler has this moment of clarity. He realizes you can't defeat darkness by just throwing more darkness at it. That only makes the void bigger. So he does something completely unexpected, something radical. He doesn't destroy the world eater. He nurtures it. He accepts that the universe has this cruel, necessary balance of creation and destruction, and that his job isn't to break that cycle, but to make sure it continues.
And boom, just like that, our two fables collide. See, both stories end at the edge of an abyss. But the way they got there and what that abyss represents for each of them, well, they couldn't be more different. So having done his duty to the cosmic cycle, the traveler finally turns to face the shadow that's been hunting him. But he doesn't fight it, not with violence. Instead, in his final moments, he does the unthinkable. He gives himself to it. He pours every last drop of his light, his very being, into his enemy,
using that act to cast the shadow into the abyss. It's this incredible, final, brilliant sacrifice.
And right here, this is the whole point. Let's break it down. The Great Star, its end was a collapse. It didn't have a choice. It was a lonely fall into a deep well, a gateway that leads to nowhere. But the traveler, his fate was a choice. It was a sacrifice made with purpose, a defiant gift to the abyss. For him, falling into that void wasn't the end. It was the beginning, the source of everywhere.
Which brings us to our final thought here. What happens when something stares into that same abyss, that same void, but doesn't meet it with fear? What if it meets it with a deliberate act of creation?
Because the traveler's sacrifice, it wasn't really about self-destruction at all. As he dissolved, his essence scattered like seeds of light into the complete emptiness. He didn't just beat the void, he totally transformed it. So his final act wasn't the end of his story. It was the first chapter for countless others.
Look, let's be real for a second. The science here is pretty solid. There's a thing called entropy, and it basically says the universe is always moving toward more and more disorder. Everything eventually falls apart. The void is waiting for everyone and everything. It's inevitable. It's exactly what happened to the Great Star.
But here's the final thought I want to leave you with tonight. The first fable, the star's story, tells us that the void is a fact. It's inevitable. But the second fable, the traveler's story, it asks, is that the whole truth? What if the greatest thing you can do in this universe isn't solving the mystery at the bottom of a black hole? What if it's creating something new, something beautiful, as an act of defiance against that very void? What if the whole point isn't to find the answer, but to be the answer?